We're going to start the webinar and the public will start coming in.
All right. Give it a minute.
Our numbers are climbing, so Ed, we're
Okay,
ready
great. Well, let's welcome everybody to the March meeting of the State Board of Land Commissioners. Thank you for joining us. And we are just coming out of executive session, so I will turn it over to Ed to move us right into our public meeting here.
Great, thank you. I'm Ed Hamrick. I'm an Assistant Attorney General and I represent the State Board of Land Commissioners. Today's March 13th, and this morning the board has been in executive session to discuss the four matters that were listed on its agenda for executive session and as authorized under 24-6-4023A of the Colorado Revised Statutes. No decisions and no board actions were taken in executive session. And we are now back on the record and ready to proceed with the rest of the board's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
And Commissioner Frobe, just for the sake of the recording, if you wouldn't mind doing a fresh attendance, that would be great.
Sure. I'd like to take a roll call here. So Commissioner Heath?
Here.
Commissioner Chavez?
Here.
Commissioner Scanlon?
Here.
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
And I am here as the chair. We're all accounted for. And Commissioner Clark, for management of the agenda, how long might you be with us today?
I can be here for the next hour.
Thank you very much. We'll manage accordingly. All right. The first item on our agenda is the open comment period for non-agenda items. And before we open it up and hear a few comments verbally, I'd like to say that we have appreciated specifically the comments that we have received in writing regarding the Maxwell Park geothermal lease. And we really enjoy the opportunity to review them and consider the opinions that are framed in that. Today, I'm aware that there are members of the public who would like to speak to this, and I'd respectively ask your patience with us as we must limit the period of time that we can have public comments for non-agenda items. As you might understand, we have a full agenda of business that must take place at our meeting today. And I would offer that we will be having a session on Maxwell Park and the geothermal lease and other issues that will be presented by staff and taken up by the board in a meeting in the near future. That is a time where comments are particularly relevant and we make time to hear from everyone about their perspectives on that agenda item. So for today, what we'd like to offer is a time period of about 10 minutes for public comment on non-agenda items, including but not limited to the Maxwell Park geothermal lease. So having said that, Alec, do you see any hands raised for members of the public who would like to offer a comment?
Yes, I do see two. And just to reiterate, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom and we will move you over into the panelist section. Here's the first one, Commissioner Frobe from Mike Kruger. I'll move you over. Coming over here. There you go, Mike. If you could unmute yourself and please address the board.
Thank you very much, Alec, and thank you, Land Board. My name is Mike Kruger. I am the President and CEO of the Colorado Solar and Storage Association, and I have been lucky to have this job for the last 6.5 years. My time is drawing near at the end of the month. I will be moving on to new things, but I did want to express the appreciation of the solar and storage industry for the hard work of the Land Board. We have seen large amounts of solar, wind, and batteries deployed in Colorado in my tenure, and much of that is on land board land. And it's super exciting to see it on, as a parent of two kids in public schools, it's super exciting to see the state's resources being used to support our future leaders in Colorado and across the world. I would say that, we have about 5 years left on the state decarbonization goals. And I wanted to make the land board aware of just how much more deployment there will be and how the industry wants to work. My successor and the members of our association, nearly 300 businesses, 10,000 folks across the state, want to work with the land board on this. The decarb goals, the current projections say that for every wind project we have, we'll need at least 2 more by 2030. For every solar project, we'll need at least 3 more. That's for every house you see with solar, we're going to need 3 more houses. For every large, 1,000-acre facility across the state, we're going to need 3 more of those. So, what we would love to do is to figure out if there's a way that developers could help speed up the process for land board leases. In some rural counties, they bring in outside third parties to administer applications, and maybe the land board would consider that. Of course, industry would help defray the cost of that. But many of these projects are on very tight timelines. We have these state mandates by 2030 for the utilities, and they need, they need to meet those. So we'd love to work with you on that. That isn't to say that David and Christopher aren't great to work with. They've been phenomenal partners, and we really appreciated their work. But there's going to be 3 times or 2 times as much work for them, and we'd love to work with you on a way that could maintain these timelines that we need to do. Finally, I'd say that there are developers in Colorado with deep roots, and there's those that are just arriving. And it's vital that the state land board is able to treat everyone equally and process those requests in an equally as quick manner. I know we all friends and relationships and people we like, but there is a large number of new entrants to the state, and we need those folks to be received as warmly and as well as we have received existing ones. Again, the solar and storage industry appreciates the years of a good, strong working relationship. We couldn't be a national leader on renewables without you. Things are only going to get bigger and faster in the next 5 years, and we want to do whatever we can to ensure that partnership continues long into the future. And we want to be your partner in helping alleviate the amount of work that you have on your couple of staffers in charge of this. So thank you very much to David and Christopher for their work, and thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. That was both informative, and it's nice to hear some acknowledgement of the work we are trying to do to meet our own mandate as well as the state's priorities. So thank you very much for taking the time to frame those comments and present them to us today.
Thank you for your time.
I see, Nick, do you have a question?
Real quick, Mike, has your successor been identified?
Not publicly. I
Okay.
expect a public announcement here very soon. There'll be a press release and probably a bit of a tour, if you will, to state and local officials such as yourself. But as of yet, there's still negotiations ongoing.
We'd welcome being part of the distribution list on that news when you're ready. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have another commenter. This is a comment from Blaine Clark. I'm moving you over to the panelist section. When you arrive, please unmute yourself and address the board.
And Alec, will you also help us keep track of the time for this session?
Yes, ma'am. We have 6 minutes remaining in our 10-minute time slot. Let's keep these to
Yeah,
about
I'm
3
here.
minutes.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I was at the ECMC meeting last night at the high school, and Ben Treacher gave us some good information. I appreciate that. We have I represent Save Our Arkansas Valley, and we've been fighting the location of the Maxwell Park lease with Mount Princeton Geothermal for a couple years now, and the lease renewal is up for this year. There has been last night a public outcry of a lot of people didn't even know about the original lease 5 years ago, and so I can just tell you that we have over 1,000 petitioners that have signed opposing the location of the geothermal plant at the Maxwell State Park. There's three other geothermal locations that was brought to the attention of Bryce Carter last night. They're in off of Trinidad Basin and the Pisciance Basin near Grand Junction is another hot geothermal site. And to the south or northeast of Colorado and Kansas state border with Colorado, those are better locations than Chaffee County. Chaffee County is a watershed. Lost Creek that runs through the Maxwell State Park is a tributary to the Arkansas River. And the Army Corps of Engineers, basically, I'm in contact with, and they just want me to keep the eyes on that. If this plant moves forward, they're going to step in. So I appreciate the time very much. And thank you, Ben, last night for giving us insight.
Thank you very much for taking your time to make those
Thank
comments.
you.
You have one more comment. Karen Pate, I'm moving you over to the panelist position. Please unmute yourself and address the board when you are in.
Good morning, everyone. I believe I'm in.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to thank Ben as well for joining last night. It was good to see him again. We've met before. And I also want to appreciate Mr. Massey for reaching out to me by email. I didn't respond because I knew I was going to provide public comment today. I want to start by letting you know a little bit about myself. I've lived and worked in the Front Range for nearly 30 years. I've been coming to Leadville and Buena Vista for nearly all of that time to run and hike in the mountains on our fabulous trails. And I'm previously a professional environmental engineer. I have retired as an IT project manager nearly 2 years ago. Nearly 6 years ago, my husband and I found our forever dream home here in Chaffee County to retire to, and we love it. We're up against we're at the base of Mount Princeton. We knew about the state trust lands, about Maxwell Park when we bought. We went to all the parking areas. We did our research. I knew that the land, the signs say wildlife area. I knew I couldn't walk on them. I'm a trail person, and I have not been on those lands. And 2 years ago, we learned that there's a geothermal plant that's going to come in there. I can't walk on them. Why would we put a geothermal plant there? So I'm just a little bit astounded by that. I do appreciate being involved in the process, and I will continue to be involved. So I do want to, with the time remaining, I do want to thank you all for all that you do. I have been paying attention to your meetings and learning your process. Given my environmental engineering background with the work that I've done with high tech to get new products to market, I've personally seen how the best of intentions can result in failures. And many residents throughout our county, frankly, don't want our lifestyles and wildlife sightings, views, or tourism to change. We cherish what we have in our open spaces, and Maxwell Park is a critical part of that. I know that you need to make money for K through 12. But I'm here to tell you, I'm concerned that this project would likely result in failure, and it'll affect wildlife forever. That's our concern in a nutshell. So I'd like to ask if we can work with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, who does care about hunting on these lands. Maybe we can make it a state wildlife area. Maybe we could apply for GOCO grants and create a hiker-only trails, charge an annual pass fee to help recoup and get you some money. Maybe we could make it a conservancy in perpetuity. I could help and lend my time on ideas like this in hopes of finding some kind of a win-win where you could get some more income, but we could protect the lands. So that's what I'm here to present and ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your both your thoughts and your insights and suggestions on that. Really appreciate it.
Mr. Pro, it looks like Ben has his hand up. Ben Teschner.
Yes, Ben.
Thanks, Commissioners. This is Ben Teschner, your solid minerals manager. And as part of my role, of course, I manage our geothermal leasing as well. I want to take a quick minute to thank Mr. Clark and Ms. Pate for being here. I had the pleasure of meeting both of them for, I believe, the second time in both cases last night at the meeting that was held by the ECMC and organized by our former communications manager, Kristen Kemp. That was a very well attended meeting at Buena Vista High School, and I was, of course, there in person with our communications and outreach manager, Emily Barbo. In addition to ECMC, there was also Bryce Carter from the Colorado Energy Office, Michael Rigby from ECMC, Sarah Bruker from DWR, and Miles Cotton from Chaffee County Planning Office. And the purpose of that was to discuss the permitting process for geothermal in general in Chaffee County. And of course, the Mount Princeton project was addressed in a certain amount of specifics as well. So I just want to make the board aware that that meeting occurred. It was, from my perspective, incredibly informative. And I'm hopeful that many of the participants in that meeting walked away with a greater understanding of the permitting process. I mean, I certainly did from ECMC's perspective. I was really pleased with what we saw there. So if you have any questions about that meeting, I'm certainly happy to address those or connect you with ECMC as we work through this process.
Thank you, Ben. Look forward to hearing more, in the coming weeks.
Commissioner Pro, we have no more comments.
You have no more?
No more comments, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Alec, for managing it. Thank you, speakers and contributors, for respecting our limited time today. So we look forward to engaging with you further on this in the future. All right. So we will move on to announcements. Over to you, Mr. Massey.
Hey, thank you. No specific announcements, and I'll maybe make a few comments during staff report.
All righty then. And then over to you, Mr. Brass, or your alternate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Aaron Ray from the Executive Director's Office, DNR, filling in for Tim Brass today with the monthly Executive Director's Office update. It's good to see you all.
Good to see you.
I would like to start with a legislative and budget update. As folks, I think, are aware, DNR is working to advance several pieces of legislation this year. All of DNR's bills have been introduced and are moving through the legislature. The first bill that I want to remind you all of is Senate Bill 25-168. That's related to the prevention of wildlife trafficking. That bill would strengthen CPW's ability to tackle wildlife trafficking into and out of Colorado. And the bill would increase work at CPW to research the biological and ecological impacts of wildlife trafficking, to increase penalties for wildlife trafficking, and to add enforcement capacity so we can better address wildlife trafficking. That bill passed out of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee with strong support. Next bill is House Bill 25-1163, which would provide free access to all of Colorado state parks to enrolled members of the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and Ute Mountain Ute Indian Tribe. That bill passed out of the House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee last Monday with a unanimous vote, which we're excited about. I also want to note that we recognize that this bill is a first step for ensuring that Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute tribal members have access to their ancestral lands. Outside of the legislative process, CPW is doing greater stakeholder and community engagement work around state park access. And so we believe this is a first step, and there is likely to be more work to come in that area. The next bill I'd like to flag for you is Senate Bill 2554. This is coming from our Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. And the goal of this bill is to facilitate the cleanup of the over 23,000 abandoned mines across the state and address over 1,800 miles of streams impaired due to acid mine drainage related to pollutants. The purpose of this bill is to create a new permit that would be suited for waste pile reclamation projects. Those projects are currently regulated as new mining operations. We think that is a burden and is preventing the cleanup of these mines. And so we want to create a new reclamation-only mining permit to facilitate reclamation of those waste piles. That bill moved out of the Senate Agricultural Natural Resources Committee unanimously and is waiting for a hearing in the Senate Appropriations Committee. Next is House Bill 251115, which is coming from the Colorado Water Conservation Board. This is a water supply and mapping bill, recently moved out of the House with strong bipartisan support and will begin moving through the Senate. This bill would position the Colorado Water Conservation Board as the lead management agency for statewide snowpack measurement and assist the state and others in planning for population growth and environmental changes as we strive to manage our water resources more sustainably. Also related to water is House Bill 251014 from the Division of Water Resources. That bill would make process improvements and streamline administrative responsibilities within DOR related to well permit expiration, permitting requirements for bedrock aquifer wells, and the timing of water rights abandonment. That is moving through the House currently. The last bill I want to mention is from the Energy and Carbon Management Commission and Division of Water Resources. That bill would create a process for the long-term stewardship of carbon dioxide storage sites in the state to ensure that those projects are adequately monitored and managed after site closure. That would work through a new enterprise funded by a fee on geologic storage operators that would fund the long-term stewardship of those sites. The bill also includes recommendations from ECMC's geothermal regulatory study, which was published late last year, to streamline the deployment of geothermal energy across the state. And I know the board heard comments this morning related to potential geothermal development in Chaffee County. I want to note for the board and for the public that House Bill 251165 would include new protections for historic hot springs to minimize any impacts on those hot springs from geothermal development. So we think that's an important component of that bill. And that bill passed out of the House Energy and Environment Committee last week and is moving through the House this week. Last, I'll just note that I haven't mentioned our annual water projects and species conservation trust fund bills that are run every year. Those will also be moving through the legislature this year. Before I move on to other updates, I want to stop and see if there are any questions about our legislative agenda.
Could you just elaborate on what you mean with wildlife trafficking?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Heath. Wildlife trafficking is the movement of, regulated wildlife species across borders. In the international realm, that's governed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. But we've become aware that there is wildlife trafficking across state borders into and out of Colorado. Species in Colorado can be captured here, and either their parts or the whole animal can be valuable outside of the state or outside of the country. And that is a threat to Colorado's wildlife. We also know that wildlife from other places can be brought into the state in violation of state or federal law. And so the purpose of this bill is to give CPW more capacity to support the efforts of federal law enforcement and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to understand the impacts of that wildlife trafficking, whether that's species being moved out of the state or into the state, and to increase penalties at the state level for wildlife trafficking to complement any federal enforcement that exists. So it really is addressing what we see as a problem where there's growing awareness of the risks here in Colorado, and one in which we can do a better job at the state level in supporting federal enforcement of our wildlife trafficking laws.
And so what kinds of wildlife are typically trafficked?
Yeah, I'll have to get you more information from CPW. What I can tell you from my understanding of what they've discovered is you hear about things like bear gallbladders having medicinal value on international markets. And we've heard that there are people who are maybe even legally hunting bears here in Colorado and then exporting their parts to serve those markets. That's the kind of thing that we are trying to combat here. But I can get more information for you about the details.
Thank you, Aaron. And I'd like a clarification, if you would, given some of the public comment today. You're saying that this one bill about geologic carbon storage captures a number of elements, including protecting hot springs. That's in that same bill?
That is correct. House Bill 251165 has two main components. The first is around carbon sequestration, and that component of the bill would set up an enterprise funded by a fee on injected CO2, and that enterprise would take over the management of those sites after site closure. So after injection has ceased, the site has been successfully closed, the enterprise would have responsibility for the long-term management of those sites. That's based on recommendations from the Carbon Management Roadmap, which I know you'll hear about in future meetings, as well as national models for managing carbon sequestration sites. And then the second big portion of that bill is around geothermal development. And DWR and ECMC released a report late last year recommending ways to better manage our geothermal resources, including clarifying the jurisdiction between ECMC and the Division of Water Resources. So ECMC would have jurisdiction over deep geothermal development. Think about geothermal electricity production. And DWR would have authority to manage shallow geothermal development. So think about ground source heat exchangers for heating and cooling, for example. But a key portion of that bill is to add new protections in state law for historic hot springs. Some of those protections already exist within ECMC and DWR rules, but because of the importance of those hot springs to the state's character and our economy, this bill would add really significant protections to state law so that geothermal development doesn't have significant impacts on those historic hot springs. And so we think that strikes the right balance between enabling the geothermal development that we need to meet our state's climate and energy goals, but also protecting those hot springs, which we know residents of Colorado care so much about.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I can also share more information about that bill and about the hot springs protections.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Any other questions for Aaron? Thank you again for standing in. Always good to see you.
And if I could, Chair, I have a few more updates. I just wanted to
Okay.
stop after the legislative stuff. Do you mind if I continue with a couple more?
Please.
Thank you. So just on the federal front, I know folks are paying a lot of attention to changes in federal policy. We continue to track policy changes happening at the federal level that impact our natural resources. One in particular that I'll flag for you all is we are evaluating the proposed interim final rule for the removal of NEPA implementing regulations. That interim final rule is out for a 30-day public comment period. That would significantly change the way the National Environmental Policy Act is implemented across the country, and we are evaluating that and considering state comments on that rule. In the forestry space, I'll note that our Colorado Strategic Wildlife Action Program announced new investments into 19 projects, 14 workforce development projects, and 5 landscape resilience projects located around the state. And one of those projects is related to the Michigan Ditch and State Forest State Park. The applicant there was the city of Fort Collins. The project's managed by Fort Collins Utilities, and that project will protect Fort Collins drinking water supply infrastructure. So we think that's one of many important projects being funded this year by COSWAP. On the energy front, last week, the Energy and Carbon Management Commission approved the annual updated high priority habitat maps, which CPW develops and ECMC incorporates into rule to inform energy development and minimize the impacts of energy development on wildlife. So that annual rulemaking was completed. Just this week, the ECMC Commission completed a produced water rulemaking that adopted targets to increase the recycling of produced water from oil and gas operations and reduce the fresh water used in oil and gas operations. So we think that's an important step in reducing the impact of oil and gas development in the state. And as I know you're going to hear more about in the future meetings, the Energy Office recently published the Colorado Carbon Management Roadmap as directed by House Bill 23-1210. That roadmap outlines a number of recommendations related to the deployment of carbon management technology in the state. And I'll note that it includes a number of recommendations for DNR's divisions. And so we look forward to working with you all, our other divisions in DNR and other state agencies to implement the recommendations of that roadmap. And I know you'll hear more from that from the Energy Office in a future meeting. Just a couple more updates on the water front. We have 3 new appointees to the Colorado Water Conservation Board. They were confirmed by the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee last week. Those 3 new appointees are Taylor Hawes, filling the Colorado River main stem seat. Taylor currently serves as the Colorado River Program Director at the Nature Conservancy. Greg Johnson is filling the City and County of Denver seat. Greg serves as the Water Resource Planning Manager for Denver Water. And Mike Camblin is filling the Yampa White and Green River seat. Mike owns and operates a ranch with his family in Maybell County. So we appreciate all of those folks serving on the CWC CD board. And final tribal updates, Ute Day at the Colorado State Capitol is April 3rd. That annual event honors the contributions and the sovereignty of 3 Ute tribes and celebrates the longstanding government-to-government relationship of the Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute tribes with the state of Colorado. So we're excited about that and hope folks can come visit Ute Day at the state capitol. And with that, I will conclude, but happy to answer any questions, and we'll follow up with additional information that we've talked about.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? All right.
Thank you all.
Again,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
No, I don't think so. Well, I just want to acknowledge, Ms. Pate, we do see your hand raised again, and just want to note that we don't typically engage in dialogue on stuff related to the DNR's director's report. If I think you've got contact info for a couple of folks on staff, if you'd like to discuss something on a different venue, we'd be happy to connect with you on that. Oh, and she put her hand down. Good. Happy to offer that. And I'll just jump right in with just a couple of brief notes on staff report. Commissioners, in your board packet, you see our usual flurry of activity. And I just wanted to highlight that staff is making good progress and working hard on filling vacant positions and new positions that we've created as a result of legislative action over the last year. And those things are progressing right along. And wanted to, throw out the usual kudos to staff for what shows up in the staff leasing report. It's when the meetings get short, if you ever wonder what staff actually working on, there's always a reminder that the staff leasing report has a lot of activity in there of what we're working on, thanks to the policy environment that we've cast, where the board entrusts staff directly with some delegated responsibilities in terms of leasing. Lots of interesting things happening there. Yeah, rather than rattle on too long, I'll just acknowledge that things are moving right along as we would hope. I'm happy to.
Any questions? Thank you for that, Nick. And also just for the public's listening, we are unable to hear from the author of the Carbon Management Roadmap on this meeting. So we'll be deferring that topic to another meeting. All right, moving on to final action. I think that brings us to Mr. Rodenberg. Would you like to share your update on this and request?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Get my screen ready for you. Are you guys seeing that okay?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Commissioners. David Rodenberg, Renewable Energy Program Manager. This final action item is a recommendation from staff asking the board to approve a renewable energy battery storage facility production lease to Weld Energy Storage LLC. Weld Energy Storage is a subsidiary of NextEra Energy Resources. And this item is coming to the board for decision because all renewable energy production leases require board approval. I also wanted to point out that this background picture that you see was taken from that battery energy storage system at the Thunderwolf Solar Project that is 100% on state trust land and is down in Pueblo County. And this picture is the same facility just from a different angle. So this production lease, if approved by the board, will not only meet the State Land Board's energy goals, but it will also earn the State School Trust $1.3 million over the 22-year lease term of the project that is proposed. So this project is located here in Weld County, right up here, and it's approximately 13 miles east of Fort Collins. So as the board is aware, we have a three-phase process when it comes to renewable energy leasing on state trust land. The first phase prior to issuing a lease is the pre-application review, where staff goes through a detailed review of the request. Each program manager reviews the proposed project and the related state trust land and how it may affect their particular program. This review includes the district manager, the stewardship trust manager, and the conservation services manager. The second phase is the planning lease phase, which allows the developer to demonstrate a certain amount of land rights to develop the project, which includes, but not limited to, site planning, obtain a power purchase agreement with the utility, and then obtain the necessary local government approvals. Planning leases are generally issued by staff. However, prior to issue a planning lease, if an agricultural lessee objects to the lease, staff will bring the planning lease to the board for review and decision, giving the agricultural lessee the opportunity to speak to the board. And finally, the third phase is the production lease, which provides the project developer with the right to construct and operate a renewable energy project on state trust land. All renewable energy production leases require board approval. This project has gone through the first two steps, which is why we are here today to present this battery storage project, the negotiated terms, and to seek board approval. If the board approves this production lease, project construction is expected to start in October of this year and be completed in the fall of 2026. So you guys heard me bring up NextEra quite a few times. We have quite a few leases with them. They're the world's largest generator of wind and solar renewable energy, as well as a leader in battery storage. They have 25 plus years of experience developing projects. Their current portfolio consists of 33 gigawatts of wind and solar and 3 gigawatts of battery storage. So the board has developed a great relationship with NextEra, who has a fair number of leases with the State Land Board. They have 11 wind production leases and 1 solar production lease. And both of those together generate about 441 megawatts of generating capacity on state trust land. They also have 2 wind planning leases and 4 solar planning leases that are currently in the planning phase. So to give you a little bit of idea where this project is, this is the project right here. And as you can see, over here is Fort Collins. Down here is Severance, Greeley, just to give you a little bit better perspective of where this project is located at. This is a close-up view of the section 36, which is in Township 8 North, Range 67 West. And our ownership contains a total of 583 acres of state trust land. And And so you can see here, so the State Land Board entered into a planning lease with NextEra in January of 2018 for 456 of those acres. That's the blue area that you see here. There's an additional 119 acres in this green area that are not currently under lease. And there's 7.7 acres of encumbered acres with an oil and gas pad, and that's what you see down here. Just to clarify a little bit, the original intent of the planning lease, it was a solar planning lease, which was executed in 2018, was for a solar panel project, which includes 1,000 acres of adjacent private land. That project is still on the table, and if the board approves this battery storage production lease, NextEra will continue to lease the remaining 432 acres to market a solar energy array project. The remaining acres will become more marketable for a solar project due to the proximity of this proposed battery energy storage system. So this is the same map which shows the location of the proposed project and the related 25 acres within the section. That's this area right here and this area right here. So this is zoomed in a little bit further. The 25 acres is the two areas that you see outlined in red. This area being the actual battery storage facility, and this area down here being the gen-tie lines to and from the facility. NextEra's containerized modular battery systems use lithium-ion battery technology for their storage projects. Lithium-ion batteries are a well-established technology, modular in design, and highly flexible. NextEra is confident it provides the best combination of reliability, cost, efficiency, and useful life. Each battery will have its own management system to communicate and actively optimize its performance. So the proposed lease terms for the state trust land parcel are the 25 acres, which I showed you on the previous slide. It will have 100 megawatts of power storage capacity. The proposed lease would be a 20-year production lease plus up to 24-month construction period. Staff recognizes that we're asking the board's approval for the monogamous use of 25 acres that will have some long-term impact of the land. However, staff is comfortable asking this because the land is considered to be fair, not excellent when it comes to rangeland quality. And we have language in our lease regarding restoration requirements after the life of the project and during the life of the project. We will be requiring a performance bond, and the revenue, and in addition, the revenue on such a small amount of acres is significant for the trust. So the total revenue for this project over the course of the 22 years is $1.3 million. That includes one-time payments of $100,000. That's for the construction period and the bonus payment, as well as $1.2 million over the course of the 20-year term in production rent revenue. So staff determined that the rangeland condition of this section is fair. When assessing properties for solar use, staff rates the property as either poor, fair, good, or excellent. So fair being about a 2 to 3 on a 1.1 to 5 scale, and 5 being excellent. None of the acres in this section are currently being leased for any agricultural uses. However, the district manager is negotiating a temporary access permit to a grazing operator to utilize the property for grazing on a temporary basis. Staff followed all agency procedures regarding lease application review and analysis. Prior to issuing a planning lease, the Renewable Energy Program Manager solicits feedback from the district manager, as I mentioned earlier, and the Stewardship Trust Manager, and the Conservation Services Manager, and all program managers. No significant issues or concerns were identified during this internal review. The project will follow local land use regulations as well as federal regulations and requirements. NextEra uses CPW's best management practices for solar energy development to determine appropriate siting for their solar and storage facilities that it develops. These guidelines were applied to the project proposed by this lease to better understand the environmental concerns around the project and to locate project infrastructure to minimize potential impacts to wildlife. For use with all renewable energy leasing decisions, staff developed their own BMPs for renewable energy projects through consultation with industry experts and other state and federal agencies. The BMPs that are in renewable energy production leases direct the lessee to mitigate potential adverse impacts to state trust land that may occur during and after project development. The BMPs also help to minimize conflicts with other board lessees and ensure successful site restoration at the end of the construction activity and at the end of the project life. So power purchase agreements, that's the term I normally use for these types of production projects, but of course this is a battery storage project. They are essential. These agreements are essential to any renewable energy project. Weld Energy Storage executed a 20-year energy storage agreement with Platte River Power Authority in mid-January of this year. The agreement spells out the development, design, construction, ownership, and operation of a 100-megawatt battery energy storage system. The project will deliver power via an interconnection gen-tie line to the 230 kV via a 230 kV line to the Severance substation owned and operated by Platte River Power Authority. And that substation is adjacent, pretty much adjacent to our property on the southwest corner of our section. That project is pending the 1041 permit with Weld County currently. In addition, Weld County Storage has completed their environmental studies, as well as completed several consultations with CPW where no issues or concerns were brought up. So the project benefits from the project will generate a significant long-term and consistent revenue for the school trust, and the project supports the State Land Board's goals and Colorado's renewable energy goals. So with that, staff recommends that the board approve a battery energy storage system production lease with Weld Energy Storage LLC, located on 25 acres of school trust land in Section 36, Township 8 North, Range 67 West in Weld County. The lease will include all of the terms described in the cover sheet and more specifically described in the board order. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions from the board and comments. And we also have some folks from NextEra if you have any specific questions for them.
Thank you, David. I see a couple of hands. Let's start with Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, David. A couple things. One, I'm always asked about performance bonds, if there's escalators on those. And then secondly, this one has a no renewals written on it, or on the sheet. Why would they not want to renew it, or it just seems kind of odd.
I'm not sure I understand the last question. No renewals?
That's what you have on there. There's no renewal on the lease, so that's never going to be renewed in 22 years.
No, it's possible. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
No, just on the cover sheet or the sheets that you provided said renewals, none.
Yeah, I apologize, Commissioner. I'm not sure. I got to pull up the document to look at that, but it's not. I don't think it's referring to the production lease. There's always a potential for a renewal if the board chooses to extend it or renew the lease after 22 years.
Okay. Yeah, that it just caught my eye. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that and try to understand what that was meant for.
I suspect there's not an automatic renewal provided for in the lease, not that it's a prohibition on renewal towards the expiration of the lease.
That's correct.
All right, Commissioner Heath.
Yes, David, thank you for that presentation. I saw the map for the battery storage projects, but how large are those units?
The actual battery storage containers?
Yeah, I mean, when you're
Yep.
looking out at them, I mean, how high are they? How?
Good question. I think that's a great question for our NextEra folks.
And I guess the second question I have is looking at the territory where it is blowing dust an issue?
Good question. That's probably another question for NextEra, but I'm not aware of any issues with that sort of thing, but we'll see what NextEra has to say about that.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, David, I've promoted Nathan Kaiser as a panelist, so he should be able to address those questions.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for inviting me to participate in the hearing and hearing about our project today. In regard to the first question, the battery storage containers, depending on which models we end up using, are typically about 20 to 30 feet long and about 12 feet tall. And there's going to be approximately about 176 of them located at this site. The pictures that David showed you guys of the Thunderwolf project that we built with the State Land Board in Pueblo County, the facility is almost the exact same size footprint. So what you see in those photos is what you're going to see here at this location as well. And then in terms of dust blowing, there's enough surrounding vegetation that dust won't be an issue. I mean, we do gravel the each of the battery containers does sit on a kind of cement foundation, and then around that there's gravel around those as well. So there's not a lot of dust there. It's not just bare earth, right? It's going to be graveled and dust controlled.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Alec, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak to this agenda item?
Yes, members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand and I can move you over. Commissioner Frobe, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, great. Well, commissioners, if you're ready, let's have a motion and a second for this recommended action.
This is Commissioner Chavez. I move we approve the battery storage production lease 9294 as presented in the board package.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez and Heath. Let's have a vote. Commissioner Chavez?
Yes.
Commissioner Heath?
Yes.
Commissioner Scanlon?
Yes.
And I can't tell, is Commissioner Clark still with us?
I am still here. This will be my last vote before I head to the airport. So
all right.
So yes.
Thank you very much. Chair votes yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Fontaine. LaFontaine, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, commissioners. I'm Matt LaFontaine, Acquisition Disposition Manager. I trust you can see my presentation, but please tell me if you cannot. Mindy Gottsagen, our Conservation Services Manager, is also on the call today to assist with this presentation. But today we have a final action item, which is the Fountain Creek Extension Replacement Property Acquisition. So you all will recall that we have the ability to conduct non-simultaneous exchanges. Those are instances when we sell parcels of state trust land. Those proceeds are set aside and the board has up to 2 years during which it can seek out other properties. We call those replacement property acquisitions. And this is one of them that the board is putting forth for your approval today. Or excuse me, that our staff is putting forth. And, with this property, you'll see it's not large in size. It's about 120 acres. It's not extremely high in price, but we think that it, despite being a small acquisition, comes with the potential for some very big benefits to the board. And I hope that we can highlight those in this presentation. The Fountain Creek acquisition parcel is located here. It is on the very southern boundary of El Paso County and just north of the county line with Pueblo County. This image depicts Section 36, of which the acquisition property is a part. In blue, you'll see an 80-acre piece, the east half of the northwest quarter, which is still under board ownership. The remainder of the section was sold off to other parties in a series of 3 transactions, as you see up on the screen right now. The 80-acre piece has Fountain Creek running through it, and for several years, Mindy has been pursuing the potential wetland mitigation bank development lease on that property. It has been hindered in part due to a lack of road access. So you'll see on this image and on the next slide as well, a road that comes up kind of the western side of the section that does not come up to and touch the board's currently owned 80-acre property. However, with the acquisition that we're looking at today, we will gain contiguity between the board's 80-acre parcel, which you see shaded in very light blue at the north, or at the top of this image, with that county road, with that private road across what is called the SLB acquisition parcel here. As a part of the transaction, we'll be acquiring an easement across the seller retained parcel that will benefit both the SLB acquisition parcel and the existing 80 acres that the board currently owns. This acquisition actually started as an effort to obtain an access easement over to our 80-acre parcel, but after considerable consideration and negotiation, staff realized that there was the potential not only to capture and improve our access to the 80-acre parcel, but to fundamentally increase and improve the potential for the wetland mitigation bank by acquiring the entirety of the 100-acre floodplain that falls within this southwest quarter. There are other benefits to this configuration that was mutually agreed on between us and the seller. Those include that both the seller retained parcel and the SLB acquisition parcel exceed 35 acres in size, which will allow for a simplified subdivision process. Further, all of the vertical improvements, which include house residents and farm buildings, utility sheds, and so on, will be on the seller retained parcel. And so the board will not be acquiring any significant improvements aside from some existing fences. Okay, for the benefits of the transaction in general, I mentioned it's approximately 120 acres. We have a contracted survey underway right now, which will be finalizing the exact acreage. But the acquisition is based on a per acre price of $4,450. Assuming that the final acreage ended up at exactly 120, the total price would be $534,000. Multiple lines of business will be supported by this acquisition. The 80-acre piece is currently leased for recreation and has some good hunting potential. However, it's also limited by its lack of access. So it has been historically leased solely by neighbors. So this will open up that potential. The real estate team has been looking at the potential for home site development on this, one or more in conjunction with the Wetlands Mitigation Bank in the kind of long-term future. And the property will also be grazable. In fact, our field ops team has already been approached about the potential of expanding grazing into this site once we own it. But the big story here is really the potential for ecosystem services. So at this time, Mindy, if you're on.
Yes, I'm here.
Over to you.
Yeah, hi, Commissioners. I'm Mindy Gottsagen, the Conservation Services Manager. This acquisition will really enable the development of, excuse me, a stream and wetland mitigation bank on not just our 80 acres that's been stranded, but on this larger 120 acre property. In fact, this acquisition makes possible that the development of that bank. We've had a planning lease on that property for at least 4 years, but it's always been access that has limited us. And actually, the relatively small size of the property, this will more than double the size of the project and also double the amount of potential credits that we could that could be generated from the two properties. As it was, our 80 acre property was too small to be really attractive to approval from the regulatory agency, which in this case is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and also would have yielded a relatively small number of credits. This will also be the first property that is our true ecosystem services acquisition. That this purchase, although it does have other benefits, excuse me, and also has a backdoor option if that mitigation bank fails to be approved. Will still recoup our investment through the sale of individual property lots. But our real achievement here is the development of that wetland and perhaps stream mitigation bank. Okay, I think that's it for me.
So for our recommendation, of course, the staff is seeking the board's approval of this acquisition. You'll note that the maximum total purchase price of $578,500 is assuming a final surveyed acreage up to 130. So that is the difference in the purchase price that we're asking. You'll also see that that staff is asking for up to $50,000 in I&D funds associated with this acquisition. Those would be utilized for property improvements, including a new perimeter fence that's going to delineate the new property line between the two parcels. And with that, I have our board order up on the screen, but Mindy and I are happy to field any questions.
Questions, anyone? Thank you, Matt. Mindy? No? How about Alec? Is there anyone in the
Yeah, members of the public that would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand and I can move you over. Commissioner, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Great. Well, then let's proceed to a motion, please.
This is Commissioner Scanlon. I move that the board approve the expenditure of up to $500,000 in I&D funds to be used for the construction of a new perimeter. I'm having trouble. Fence and other such improvements that be deemed necessary for the positioning of the property at this discretion of the Ecosystem Services Manager and or the South Central District Manager, and the board delegates the approval for the acquisition of the Fountain Creek Extension acquisition property at the price of $4,450 per acre, not to exceed $578,500, as presented in our board packet today. I really did that backwards, but I think you get the intent of my motion.
Commissioner, if I could make one clarifying
Apparently,
statement.
should I have done this differently, Matt?
The purchase price itself will not come from I&D funds. It will come from NSE funds.
That's what I meant to say, Matt, if I had started reading from the top, not the bottom.
What would you like to how about for the record, would you like to make a motion again, Commissioner Scanlon?
You know what? I move that as presented in our board packet today, that we determine as best interest of the trust to approve the acquisition of the Fountain Creek Extension property and the I&D funds approval as presented.
Thank you very much. I have a second to that motion.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Let's have a vote. Commissioner Scanlon,
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark is excused, and the chair votes yes. Motion carries. And I think this is a great little deal. I'm very excited that it fulfills the order of acquiring new properties for ecosystem services as well as generating all the other co-benefits. So
I
great
agree.
job.
And it's kind of creative. It puts it all together in a nice,
Yeah.
in a really cool way. No, thank you.
Now, did I read this properly? Was this part of the original land trust?
Correct. Yes, this was what we call an original Section 36.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Also cool.
Buying it back. All righty. Thank you very much for that. Nick, I didn't notice on the agenda the IND update. Is that something you want to present, or shall we assume people have read it?
We don't, sorry,
It's on the sheet here. I have it.
That's typically part of, sorry, Elliot Hoyt, Assistant Director. Typically, we put that in as a report whenever there's an IND request.
Oh,
we slip that in with a cover sheet, but it doesn't necessarily come up in the.
I see. So it's not, that's why it's not.
It's not an overall report. It's just for this particular request to make sure the money's there.
Thank you for the life ring, everybody. Yeah, that was just collaborative to Matt's agenda item because his
Great.
included IND funds.
Thank you. All right. Then we have the board leasing agenda in front of us. Andy, anything you'd like to add to that?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andy Bissett for the Transactions and Record Services team. No, I'll just briefly outline the 7 items that we have on this March 2025 agenda. We do have 3 competitive bids, all recreation, 2 in Morgan County, 1 in Lincoln County. We do have 2 Front Range area commercial new leases, and we have 2 right-of-way new leases as well. Staff recommends approval of the March 2025 board leasing agenda.
One quick question, if I
Yes.
may. I don't see her on here, but was just going to ask Julie about sort of trends in the commercial real estate market. Maybe Matt has an opinion. I'm delighted to see 2 commercial leases of some significant size and duration.
Yes.
Yeah, Commissioner, this is Christopher Smith, Real Estate Section Manager, and we have an information item scheduled to be on next month's agenda to talk about just that. There will also be likely be 2 more larger commercial leases on the board leasing agenda next month. So we are definitely seeing an uptick in activity, and we're going to try to present our thoughts as to why.
Wonderful. Great. Delighted to see it. Any questions about the leasing agenda? Alec, anyone out there who has a comment for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody in the public that would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand. Not seeing any hands.
Terrific. May I have a motion for approval?
Madam Chair, I move the adoption of the board leasing agenda for March 2025 as shown in our board packet with delegation to the director to take appropriate action consistent with our decision.
Thank you. May I have a second?
This Commissioner Chavez, second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Scanlon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heath?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
Mr. Clark is excused and the chair votes yes. Motion carries 4-0. And that wraps up sort of the official action of our meeting. I might, Nick, I wonder if it would be useful to review for the commissioners the next couple of months in terms of format and location of our meetings.
You bet. Happy to do it.
We do have to approve our minutes just real quickly.
Oh, I forget the minutes always. Yeah. All right. are there any modifications or comments or deletions to the minutes as you've reviewed in your board packet? Hearing none, the minutes are considered approved by acclamation. Thank you, Commissioner Scanlon.
Yes, thank you.
I'm really on top of it. Have you noticed?
Was that a redemption move?
Yeah, it was entirely. Sharp as a tack this morning.
It's a team effort every time. So yeah, just a quick touch point, a few touch points on what we've got planned for the board in the coming months. And staff will continue to follow up with the board by email for specific details. And so if you don't catch all of these dates, I mean, I'll work my way through them kind of slow, but we'll follow up with an email to give you some specific details. But for April, staff has lined up a tour of the Chancellor Ranch. And so we're going to center our board activities in April around Trinidad. That's April 9th and 10th. And on the 9th, to make it possible to get it done in a day, we need to leave Denver, or I wouldn't ask Commissioner Chavez to come up to Denver and then go back down to Trinidad, but we need to, for those of us departing from Denver, we're going to need to leave pretty early in the morning, probably 7 a.m. And then we've got a bit of a drive ahead of us, but we'll spend quality time down on the ranch and discuss just about everything we've got going on down there. Recreation, ag, probably some ecosystems stuff, I think is what we've got in mind. And so the
And a
meeting will
reminder,
take
it's
place,
coming up for an RFP, is that correct?
and
At least
we'll be, I think, already within an RFP process for the ranch. So we'll be discussing a little bit about what that looks like and the things we've got going related to it. And so the business meeting then is on the Thursday, so that's April 9 and 10. And we'll head back to homeward sometime on the 10th. May, as best we understand it, May 7 has been blocked out, or we've asked you to hold May 7 for State Land Board Director interviewing. That's the one date that I know of that Dan Gibbs has asked everybody to be available for that process. And so we won't be doing any touring, but we will have our business meeting on the 8th. And as details about the director process are circulated with staff, we'll lock down that agenda, timing for the business meeting, et cetera, as we get a little closer to that.
May I add some color to that, Nick?
Please do.
Thank you. For the commissioners, you should be receiving a letter shortly, or an email from Wendy at the DNR, giving you the time frame for your review of the applications, the qualified applications for the director position. That's nominally going to be the first 10 days of April for you to collect your thoughts and submit your top candidates and your rationale and other insights to Wendy. And depending on the number of candidates, well, then the next process is Dan Gibbs and I are meeting on the 15th to review the commissioner recommendations and to come to an understanding of how many and which candidates would be moved to an interview. And the impact for the meeting is, depending on the number of candidates, we will either complete the interviews on the 8th. If not, then our business meeting might start a little later, say 11 or 12 the following day. So by the 15th of April, we'll have a pretty good idea of how long your business day will be on May 9th. And I'll let you know.
Did you say May 9th?
Do you mean May 7th, 8th?
Or yes.
Yep, 7 and 8. 7 is
7
the
and 8.
full day for the board.
Yeah, and 8 would be the business day. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm following you. Okay.
And I neglected to mention, as part of our April sort of business day, we are going to return to doing commissioner roundtables and trying to get local electeds involved in connecting with this body. And so we'll make sure that we're as clear as we can be on what to expect from that and who we have coming or who we think will be attending. And we'll do it much like we've done in previous years, where the director gives an overview presentation of the work of the land board and the relationship between the land board and the neighboring community. And then lots of Q&A and opportunity for discussion and, learning about the challenges and opportunities faced locally. So we're going to try to do that anytime we tour. So then let me just mention the plan for June 11 and 12. We're calling it sort of the Fort Morgan tour. But as most of what we want to look at is relatively close, the plan would be to start and end from Denver on June 11, and go out and check out some of our ag properties, as well as we've got an opportunity to look at a fair number of ecosystem services pieces, and some other fun stuff to look at. But to clarify, that's an out and back. We would not be spending the night out on the road, and then we'd have the business meeting on the 12th.
Okay.
So maybe I'll leave it there for now and include some more details in my email.
Yeah, and send the and the suggested or the projected activities for the rest of the summer. But just wanted to clarify for these near-term months.
Yep.
Any other comments, ideas, thoughts from anyone here before we close out? No? Okay. Trying to think if I have any updates. Not particularly. All right. Nice to have a little time on our hands.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being efficient.
Yeah, thanks, commissioners, for your flexibility this morning, and for your eyes on a last-minute update to the board packet this month. And just really appreciate the work you put into the work we're doing, and happy to keep moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Nick,
everybody.
too, for continuing in this important role.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. I'm having a lot of fun.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Much. Take care.
Enjoy
All.
your day.
Thank you all.
Bye.